Jocelyn had been different lately. She had become distant, emotionally detached, like a stranger living under the same roof. The warm conversations we used to have turned into short, cold exchanges. The small acts of love, her random kisses, her playful teasing, the way she used to rest her head on my chest at night, had all disappeared. She was always on her phone, smiling at messages she never let me see. She dressed up more often, wearing outfits I hadn't seen in years, fixing her hair just right, putting on perfume even when she was just going to the grocery store. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe she just wants to feel good about herself, I reasoned. Maybe she's going through a phase. But deep down, I knew something was off. Then came the lies. The sudden late nights at work, the mysterious weekend outings with friends, the way she avoided eye contact whenever I asked about her plans. Something was wrong, and one night I found out exactly what it was. It happened on a Friday night. Jocelyn had told me she was going to visit her best friend Sarah. I was home alone, exhausted after a long day at work. I had planned to watch a game on TV, but I dozed off on the couch. A few hours later, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on the coffee table. It was a voicemail. I rubbed my eyes and checked the caller ID. It was from Jocelyn. I frowned. Why would she leave me a voicemail? Curious, I pressed play. At first, there was only rustling, like someone fumbling with their phone in a pocket. Then I heard voices, Jocelyn's voice and a man's. My heart pounded as I listened. Mmm, I missed you, Jocelyn purred. I missed you too, baby, the man replied. I sat up straight, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. You don't know how hard it is to pretend at home, Jocelyn continued, her voice soft, almost breathless. I can't even look at him without feeling guilty. But I just can't stop seeing you. The man's laughter was low and deep. Then don't stop. You know you belong to me, Josie. You always have. Josie. Nobody called her that except my blood ran cold. Ray, I swear, I think about you all the time, Jocelyn whispered. When I lie next to him at night, I wish it was you. The sound of lips meeting, the soft moan that followed. I yanked the phone away from my ear as if it had burned me. My stomach twisted into a painful knot. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a joke. Jocelyn was cheating on me, and she had called me by accident. I sat there frozen, the words replaying in my head over and over again. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But more than anything, I needed proof. So I did what any man in my position would do. I decided to catch her in the act. I opened the GPS tracking app on my phone, the one we had installed for safety reasons. I had never thought to check it before. But now as I looked at the little red dot showing Jocelyn's location, my hands trembled. She wasn't at Sarah's house. She was across town, at a hotel. I grabbed my keys and drove like a madman. When I reached the hotel parking lot, I spotted her car instantly. It was parked near the entrance, right next to a sleek black sports car. Ray's car. I clenched my jaw so tightly it ached. I parked a short distance away and waited. Minutes felt like hours. I kept expecting my heart to slow down, but it only pounded harder. And then, the doors of the hotel lobby swung open. Jocelyn stepped out first. She was smiling, laughing, her dress slightly wrinkled, her hair a little messy, and right behind her was Ray. Tall, muscular, arrogant. He reached for her waist, pulling her close. She giggled and playfully slapped his chest before looping her arms around his neck. And then, right in front of me, she kissed him. It wasn't just a quick peck. It was the kind of kiss that sucked the air out of my lungs. The kind of kiss she used to give me. I felt like the world had collapsed around me. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, the woman I trusted. She was in love with someone else. I didn't storm out of my car. I didn't yell or make a scene. I was too numb. Instead, I went home and waited. Hours later at 1 a.m., the front door creaked open. Jocelyn walked in, stretching, tossing her purse on the couch like she had just come back from a long, satisfying night. She didn't notice me at first. I sat in the dark, watching her. Luke? she said, startled when she finally saw me. Why are you up? Where were you? I asked, my voice eerily calm. She blinked. I told you. With Sarah. I let out a small, bitter laugh. Sarah is out of town, I said coldly. Try again. She swallowed hard. Oh, I, I meant Lisa. Lies, I muttered. Try again. She shifted uncomfortably. Luke, what is this about? I stood up slowly, my eyes locked on hers. I heard you, Jocelyn. Her face paled. What? I pulled out my phone and played the voicemail. Her own voice filled the silence. I missed you. Jocelyn's breath hitched, her face twisted in horror. You don't know how hard it is to pretend at home. She stumbled back, shaking her head. Luke, I saw you, I cut her off, at the hotel, with Ray. Tears welled up in her eyes. I can explain. No, I said, my voice like ice. You can't. Her lips trembled. I started hauling insults at Jocelyn. I called her a prostitute. I called her all the derogatory names I could think of. Words I never thought I would say to anyone, let alone my wife, the woman I loved. That's when she dropped the final bombshell. I settled for you, Luke. The air turned thick. She exhaled sharply. I wasn't attracted to you. You were never my type. I only married you because you were stable, because I knew you'd take care of me. Her words sliced through me like a knife. I loved Ray, she continued. I always have, but he was reckless. He couldn't provide for me. You, on the other hand, were safe. You were reliable, and I needed that. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. I should have yelled. I should have thrown something. But I didn't. I just looked at her. This woman I had loved. This woman who had never truly loved me. And I felt nothing but emptiness. You're a cruel woman, Jocelyn, I whispered. She reached for me. Luke, please. I turned and walked away. And I never looked back. The next morning, before the sun even rose, I packed my things and left. I moved in silence, stuffing my clothes into a suitcase, gathering my essentials, wallet, keys, documents. I didn't take much, just enough to walk away without ever looking back. Jocelyn was still asleep when I zipped up my bag. For a moment, I stood at the doorway of our bedroom, staring at her. She looked peaceful, curled under the blankets, her dark hair spilling over the pillow. I used to think she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Now all I saw was a stranger. I turned away and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a note. I was done. The calls started before I even reached my hotel. At first I ignored them. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. Then came the texts. Luke, please come home. Let's talk. I'm sorry, I was angry. I didn't mean what I said. Please, Luke, just give me a chance to explain. I read each one as they came in. And then I turned off my phone. The next day she showed up at my office. I had barely settled in when I heard a commotion at reception. Then my assistant, Greg, poked his head in, looking uncomfortable. Luke, your wife's here. I sighed. Ex-wife. Right, he muttered. She's refusing to leave. I clenched my jaw. I had hoped she'd give up after I ignored her texts, but I should have known better. I stepped out of my office and there she was. Jocelyn. Her eyes were puffy, red-rimmed from crying. Her makeup was smudged, her usual confidence replaced with desperation. Luke, please, she said the moment she saw me. Just talk to me. I stood there, hands in my pockets, staring at her. There's nothing to talk about. Her bottom lip quivered. I didn't mean what I said last night. I was angry. I was scared. You meant every word, I said coldly. You just regret that I heard them. That's not true, she protested, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. Go home, Jocelyn. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. Luke, I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you. Please don't do this. I felt nothing, not sadness, not anger, just exhaustion. You didn't love me, I said. You loved what I could do for you. She gasped, shaking her head. No, I turned and walked back into my office, shutting the door in her face. Greg raised an eyebrow. That was brutal. I exhaled sharply. Not brutal enough. A week later, the divorce papers were ready. I sat in the lawyer's office, flipping through the documents, ready to sign. And then my phone rang. Jocelyn. I stared at the screen. I should have declined the call, should have ignored her like I did all the others. But something inside me told me to pick up. I answered, but I didn't speak. For a moment, all I heard was soft breathing, then her voice. Luke, she whispered, this is the last time I'll call. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tightly. I know you hate me, she continued, and I deserve it. I know I broke you, but you need to know, I did love you. Maybe not the way you wanted, but I did. And I'll regret losing you for the rest of my life. I said nothing. Goodbye, Luke, she whispered. Then she hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time. Then, without hesitation, I picked up the pen and signed the divorce papers. And just like that, I was free. The day the divorce was finalized, I packed up the last of my things from the house and walked out for good. Jocelyn wasn't there. I didn't know where she was, and I didn't care. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit me, fresh and crisp, like a new beginning. I took one last look at the house, the home we had built, the life we had shared, and then I walked away. I made a vow that day. I would never make the same mistake again.